And I'm going to admit people now. You ready?
Do you want to say hello first, or should I?
Up to you. What do you think?
I'll say hello.
Okay. Ready?
Sure.
Three, two, one.
Hello, everyone. I am Jordan. I think we have a few people in the room. Uh,
Yes, we do. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
okay, anyone want to introduce themselves? First names?
Yeah, feel free to unmute and say hi.
That's when the fun begins. Hello.
Not sure if you can hear me. My name is Matthew Replinger, and I am driving from Phoenix, Durango. So I may be muted and my screen off for most of the call. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries. You could just listen as well.
All right. Yeah, Matt, don't take your eyes off the road. I'm not really interested in you being on the road. I don't talk to my relatives.
In the chat, let's see. Catherine says, hi at work. I have to be quiet. All right. We got
Okay, great.
Jessica joining right now. All right. Hi, everyone. If you're new here, feel free to introduce yourself, and we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Somebody jumped in, Brianna.
Yeah, I think it was an accident. Can everybody see the picture of Jordan that we have up? He's who's leading us today. He's the founder of Foul Ball Safety Now.
Guess you didn't stop or you didn't hear me. Copy.
Happy. I think I heard.
Yeah.
I got it.
All right. I'm gonna go on and on. Don't worry, guys. I'm ready to give you guys a lot of information, and we're just waiting for a few more people to jump in. How we doing there, Brianna?
Doing good, doing good. We'll give it a few more minutes. If anybody wants to share or write in the chat their favorite team, or maybe Jordan, you could share your favorite team.
Sure. So yeah, I grew up in New York. I was a New York Met fan, still am. Um, just a baseball guy in general. Played Little League for a lot of years. Just a big bassist from history and just growing up watching the games, any games. So it was exciting. So I really do love baseball. And does anyone want to share any of their baseball experiences or fandom? Feel free to jump in for a few minutes and start off that way. Anybody have a favorite team, favorite memory? Okay. Got it.
All right, we got another person coming in now.
Okay. Okay.
I'm happy to share, Jordan.
Sure. Please do.
Uh,
What's your name?
Matthew Replinger again, and
Okay.
I was born in Kansas City, a Kansas City Royals fan,
Hmm.
but I worked for the Colorado Rockies for my first several years in baseball and won a
Hmm.
national championship with the Rockies in '07.
Right.
Worked for Major League Baseball for a couple of years. Wrote the book on the history of baseball in Denver. Have
Oh, wow.
owned a company that consults big league teams in yoga and meditation for over a decade. I've worked with about half of Major League Baseball. I currently manage a minor league baseball team, independent minor league baseball team in Northern California. And yeah, baseball is definitely my life. I umpire all levels of baseball.
Oh, wow.
And scout extensively for my independent minor league team. And just leaving Phoenix now with all the Arizona Fall League games.
Right.
Baseball is definitely kind of my life and something that's very important to me. And I've known of your movement for some time and have always been curious. So I'm really glad I could join and have some interest. I've had so many close calls on the field, seeing people and people outside the fence, inside the fence,
Right.
getting hit with foul balls. So it's
Right.
something that's important to me. So thanks again for having me.
Sure. We appreciate that.
Thank you for
Appreciate that.
sharing. And Catherine says in the chat she's an Orioles fan.
Okay.
So we got the Royals, we got the Orioles. Anybody else who
Okay.
wants to share either
Okay. I
locally or
have
in the
an I
chat?
have a, I have an Orioles story, so I can share just briefly. So I'll get into a tour I took at Camden Yards, where I was the only one on the tour. I was driving down to Florida, and I detoured, I guess, off of 95, and wanted to get to see the Camden Yards experience. The ballpark had just opened up, maybe a couple of years earlier. So I had an opportunity to take a tour. Maybe it was off season, and they were very kind to give me a one-on-one tour. I was the only one who signed up, I guess, that hour. And then another time I attended the game in Camden Yards when the Mets were playing the Baltimore Orioles, maybe about 15 years ago. And that was fun. I think the Mets had won too, so that was even better. So yeah, just big baseball guy. Um, you were mentioning, Brianna, somebody else joined in the room?
Yeah, we've got, so let's say hi to everybody.
Sure.
Just get out of this screen. All right, so it looks like we've got Matthew, who's been very vocal. Thank you, Matthew. Dan, Catherine, David, and Jessica. Welcome, everybody. So I think we can get into it now. Maybe
Okay.
we might have some late people join, but
Okay.
let's start.
Okay, guys. So what I was thinking about, there may be people in the room already busting, ready for questions about the foul ball safety now endeavor. So I'm excited to hear your questions. But I'll give just a brief introduction about who I am and what got me motivated and how long I've been going at it. And maybe I'll go on for about 5 minutes and then I'll take a breath. And then if anyone is ready with questions already, we'll get a sense of how long I should go into each area. I don't want to dominate the time. I think this is an opportunity. It's almost like a town hall, people coming together, people curious about this matter. Uh, but I started back in 2019. I saw morning news one day. I saw a little girl get hurt by a foul ball on TV. It was a high profile case where a Cubs player hit a little girl in Houston, and it was very upsetting. It made national news. And from that point on, I kind of started Foul Ball Safety Now, and it's been going strong for 6 years. Um, if people have seen the website, which is all there at Foul Ball Safety Now, you'll get a sense, even from my earlier writings, that I was raring to go, maybe a little bit overly ambitious about making change like in a minute. I was offering the Mets and the Yankees money to do upgrades. And I knew in retrospect that they weren't interested in my money. They have enough money to fix an issue. They don't need a volunteer or somebody who has a few dollars to put out to buy some nets. They don't need my money. So they would be like, thanks, but no thanks. So I kind of knew that early on. They're not taking my money. They don't need my money. But I think from that point on, I slowed down a drop. I had somebody by the name of Brendan join me. He's an investigative journalist. He's been with me for 6 years. We built Foul Ball Safety Now, and we just started taking a deeper dive into this issue. We learned of a couple of reports. Even in the year that I got involved, there were two reports out that were pretty representative of what the problem was, or what the problem um, needed to what we needed to do is pay attention to these reports. So ESPN came out with a video on the website. We call it Exhibit A. It's a 5-minute video that unfortunately demonstrates a lot of serious injuries, line drives going into areas where children are getting hit by foul balls. It clearly does demonstrate past end of dugouts. You have no reason being there if you're 4 years old, or even anyone, because we're not superheroes. We're not able to get out of the way of those type of line drives. So that's why we renamed that 5-minute video Exhibit A. So that came out in 2019, about the time I got started. And then NBC Sports also came out with a 5-minute, no, I'm sorry, a national news report, which demonstrated that from the years 2012 to 2019, a lot of people reported to first aid at the major league level, because 4 of the 30 teams participated with NBC. It wasn't the teams itself, it was actually the independent contractors. But if you extrapolated data similar to the data they found from the 4 teams, if you extrapolated from the other 26 teams, there's a big number of how many may have been reporting to first aid, mostly from from foul balls. And there was a lot. Maybe the number was around 5,000 if you extrapolated all the numbers. And you can look at that and you can see how I came up with those numbers. So that was all very interesting, learning all about that. And just fast forward to now, we're putting up new links that people can see at Foul Ball Safety Now. And just to go back, those implied 5,000 people that may have reported to first aid on the major league level, there are 5 times as many more games in all the other professional leagues. You have 169 other professional teams conducting business. So you have your 30 major league clubs, and they all have 4 affiliates. So that makes 120 teams, plus another 49, which are called the MLB partner leagues. So we're talking 169 professional teams that are conducting business. Potentially 5 times as many more games. There are 5 times as many more games than there are in major league games. It's 2,430 or 2,460 major league games every year, and there's 14,000 other professional games every single year. So if people want to take a look at Exhibit A1, which is something up on the website. You guys, if you're on your laptops, you can see Exhibit A1, which was a published report by a publication called 538, also in 2019, which more or less demonstrated the hot zones where the balls go on a regular basis. It showed like a chart. This percentage of foul balls go in these sections. These percentage of foul balls goes in those sections. Now, based on that, and based on the research that Brendan and I did, we put something together which was incorporating our own research into the 538 published report of 2019. People can go on the website and see Exhibit A1, which we put out earlier this year. In Major League Baseball, there were 53 foul balls on an average per game, 53 foul balls per game. And if you cut that number in half, that would be 25. It's even less than half. 25 foul balls per game in a 9-inning game, whether it's at the major league level, whether it's on all the other professional levels. If you take 14,000 games, which is not MLB, it's the other leagues, and you multiply it by 25, that's 350,000 foul balls per game. Now, you can see Exhibit A1. It's not going to tell you, how many balls went just past the end of the dugout at 100 miles an hour, but it certainly begs for the question, well, how many of those balls, percentages of those 350,000 balls went at 100 miles per hour? And I'll say, well, I don't know the answer to that, but MLB certainly does. They've been tracking everything for the last decade or two when it comes to exit velocities, launch angles. So it's an opportunity to discover or ask just how many were really going at these speeds into these sections. So I think that's a powerful link on the website because people can almost go down memory lane themselves and kind of figure out that they may have sat in that section or similar sections in the hot zones. And maybe they didn't experience a hard line drive, the 4 times a year that they had attended the games. But what about the other 30 or 40 other times where there could have been those experiences where somebody may have been blinded the day before or the day after, and they didn't really know about it. They never put 2 and 2 together. So it's really an opportunity for me to present all of our findings and then let everyone as an individual kind of figure out their own experience, past and present, and even agencies, the OSHA agencies and the children's agencies, and say, hey, if they were aware of all the information that we're presenting, would they have maybe spoke up sooner? And I think the answer is yes. I think people would have opened up about this issue on these, within these agencies that are supposedly looking out for the workplace people, the staff, the ushers, and the teenagers that work the aisles in their first jobs selling hot dogs, and clearly the fans, they may come to the conclusion that they weren't warned properly before they had got to the game about what was going to be. And maybe they were told through the ticket or through the back of the ticket, which is now the back of the e-ticket, which nobody looks at. But even that, is that sufficient? And then even when you do get to the game, when you do see a warning or hear a warning or see signs, well, the last I checked, we're not superheroes. We're not action figures. We're there. It says be careful of a foul ball, but really? I mean, we're already there. And I don't think that that's sufficient. I think transparency would tell you every winter about what took place the year before and what they anticipate coming up. And then, let the conversation begin and then everyone could decide, has business as usual been satisfactory or has it not been up to par? Let people decide and let agencies decide. I certainly want agencies to get involved, better late than never, to speak up and say things like maybe we should have learned about this years ago and maybe we would have had more of a official reaction. So yeah, so I kind of went from the beginning and now I kind of like I'm putting this conference, this town hall in front of all of us to think about. And I guess I'll take a pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions about maybe you had questions prior to this conference, but maybe you have a question now that you'd like to ask. So um, I have a lot more to include because I've been working with Brendan every week pretty much for the last 6 years. You'll hear about what we did this week and what we did last week and what we think we're doing next week. I'll get to that in a few minutes. So, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and ask a question, or you can also type in the chat.
Hi, it's David here.
Hi, David.
What's been the litigation history for people that are injured?
Mm-hmm.
Have they sued for damages and or is the ticket uh, uh, the legalese of
Yeah.
buying a ticket prevent that kind of action?
Right. So most states recognize to some degree the baseball rule, but there have been lawsuits. And I have specifics that I can share with you and outcomes that I can share with you. But I believe for the most part, it's very hard to find an attorney and go to court because of the baseball rule. It's if you Google baseball rule, guys, if you're on your computer, this has been in place for more than 100 years. And you needed like an act of Congress to change that. And basically most owners have been able to lean on the baseball rule because if somebody got hurt in their ballpark, they knew that it was hard for the plaintiff to find an attorney. And that's what I've heard before, that plaintiffs do have a hard time finding attorneys. Um, but yeah, there's been some cases. I had gone to court in Illinois. This was a woman who was not seriously black and blued, but she was black and blued, meaning she didn't have long-term physical issues. But you can find somewhere on my website, I went to court in the month of July of 23 and went a few rounds in Peoria, Illinois, and that went till July 24. I hired a lawyer. I had a plaintiff, the woman who was part of Foul Ball Safety Now with Brendan and I. Brendan's a journalist I've been now with 6 years. The woman we happened to have known interviewed with us, and I asked her if she would be willing to be a plaintiff and I would pay the attorney, and she was. So we had a plaintiff, and it was the plaintiff versus the Peoria Chiefs. It was a combination of a few things. Now, she wasn't suing for damages. She had black and blue mark. She got hit in the face. She wasn't. She didn't have long-term physical issue, but she was kind enough to do an interview with us earlier. And when I found that Peoria was one of the worst of the offenders, I definitely did single out Peoria. I rented out an airplane. I made some noise in Peoria. You can see um, we have a tab on the website. It plays in Peoria. You can look at that. We put it all into one place so people can see. You may see some of that Peoria stuff on other parts of the website as well. But plays in Peoria, we had airplane flyovers. We got, I think, a result that I was looking for, which was improved netting in Peoria. They were one of 120 at the time when we filed the lawsuit, one of 120 of the affiliates that did not even have netting above the dugout. So the plaintiff was very kind to be part of this with us. And I stopped the case because it cost me money. And my attorney said we weren't going to get the results we were looking for in the next round. I wasn't going to appeal the judge's ruling to go to arbitration. And that's what round we were at. So I kind of stopped it, but we got a nice article in the St. Louis Dispatch, and we were connected to the Peoria newspaper for a few years and got one, maybe two articles. So, but in the cases of Dave, to answer your question about the people, we know of some high profile cases where there's been NDAs and they've made some settlements. We know about that, but nobody knows about it because the the plaintiffs are muzzled. They can't really talk about the the settlement or the details. But what we can do at Foul Ball Safety Now is we can go within those proceedings because that's not sealed. That's all public information. So I think people are going to be kind of surprised that MLB has taken the position on or dragged out these cases and made the plaintiffs go through more hoops than maybe they should have to get what they needed. So there's a lot here, Dave, and happy to always continue on with you or anyone else if we haven't entirely answered your question. Did you have any follow-ups, Dave, that you wanted to throw
No,
at
that
me?
was very helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Catherine says, very common thought. I thought MLB mandated a couple years ago that all teams had to extend the netting past the dugout. Baltimore did.
Right. Okay, that's a good question. So, yes, in 2019, on the ESPN 5-minute video, which we call Exhibit A, there is a response from Manfred saying that all teams would be extending netting as further down to the foul pole as possible by the 2020 season. And what happened, I called and that means it's substantially further down the lines to as further down into the foul pole as possible, if construction would allow, whatever that actually means. But in 2020, before COVID hit, I was into this. I was making calls. I called all the spring training facilities in California, in Arizona and in Florida. And I still found out, speaking to the box offices before they shut down because of the COVID, I got responses. And 16 out of the 30 teams hosting games, so that is a majority. Some of the teams do share. There could be two teams sharing one ballpark, but I think the way I recall, 16 out of the 30 teams were still hosting their home games with no netting past end of dugouts. So spring training is still guys hitting the balls at 100 miles an hour. Ask Annette. Unfortunately, a woman that we've interviewed 80 people at Foul Ball Safety Now, and unfortunately, you hear their stories. She was in Arizona and she got hit in the belly as a pregnant mom. She didn't know for that whole day if the baby was okay. And she allowed us to share her black and blue stomach, which was very nice of Annette, and the baby's fine. But that was 2020. 16 of 30 teams were still not hosting games. So obviously, nobody heard loud enough that Manfred spoke about this strong suggestion about getting it done. I think it didn't really come across as a mandate because then it would have been done. And then I wasn't able to make any calls. People were kind of shut down in 2020 after that. But I'll just transfer to the 120 affiliates. At the time, there was at least 40 affiliates with no netting past end of dugouts. These are the affiliates. The major league clubs pay the salaries. Yankees, Mets, Orioles, they pay the salaries of these 120 affiliates. You know, why aren't you guys extending netting? It wasn't until 2022 till Manfred said something in December of 2022 when he said by 2025, all of the affiliates will need to have extended netting as furthest down as possible. So that's 3.5 years from the time he said something at that press conference, implying that MLB needed to step it up and get their netting further down the lines. And then 3.5 years, December of 2022, where he says, well, by 2025, they'll all have to have extended netting, certainly down to as close to possible to the foul pole. And then I'm saying, what is that? And so now you're acknowledging this issue again, and then you're now letting people sit in harm's way for the next 2 years, where you could probably impart an initiative to get it done in a few days. Jerry Reinsdorf, he is the owner of the Chicago White Sox. During the 2019 All-Star break, I think it was, he did major renovation on netting, and he made a lot of improvements in like a 4 or 5 day period, or maybe it was during a homestand and an all-star break, but let's say it was even within 2 weeks, he got it done. So basically, it's been kicked the can down the road, and it's 2025, and there's still 30 to 40 affiliates in the MLB partner leagues that still don't have netting past end of dugouts. And even though improvements are good, I always say improvements are good, but are they really solutions? So now I'm going a little bit in circles. So I'm not sure if that addresses a lot of what you asked. Brianna, you want to ask the woman if she has a follow-up?
Yeah, if anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to unmute.
Or if you wanted to
Type in the
continue
chat.
talking about this particular issue on the netting minutes. Does she have a follow-up, Brianna?
Zach asked a question in the chat. How many fatalities are a result of a foul ball over the years?
Not a lot that I know of in professional sports, because obviously more than one is a lot, but there were two at Dodger Stadium that I know of. There was one in independent ball in Texas about 15 years ago. There was a coach who was killed, Mike Kuba, in 2008. Um, he was coaching the first baseline for minor leagues, and unfortunately, he got killed. Um, but I know Brendan and I have interviewed more than 20 people, and two of those people were people that were blinded in one eye. And we also interviewed Erwin Goldblum, whose wife died at Dodger Stadium. So the ones that I know of that died were the two people at Dodger Stadium, a 14-year-old boy in 1970, a a woman, Linda Goldblum, in 2018, sitting in the loge level. Alan Fish, he was behind the first base dugout. Um, but we also know of people that have been blinded. My lawyer's friend was blinded in New York in 1979. I'll just give you a little bit of color on that one. Jenny was very kind to interview with us. Erwin also interviewed with us, Erwin Goldblum, whose wife was killed at the Dodger game. But Jenny's interview was interesting because Jenny shares with us that when she was blinded in 1979, um, she she later became a mom, and her mom and she was later became a mom, and her 8-year-old was playing little league, but she was feeling anxiety from her own experience apparently, and she even told us that in the interview. And she was kind of relieved that the 8-year-old gave up baseball on his own. And my sense is that the mother was probably making the child feel nervous, and he wanted to make his mother happy. That didn't come out in the interview, but I kind of put two and two together. And then, you can almost come to the conclusion that maybe that 8-year-old is now 30 years old, and maybe he's telling his own newborn or his own child that you don't want to play baseball. Look what happened to your grandmother. So those families that have been blinded and those families that have been hit, they're not going to be the same. We interviewed somebody we interviewed not too long ago. She was 9 years old at a professional game, and unfortunately, she was unconscious for 4 or 5 days at the game. She got hit, and she was unconscious for 4 or 5 days. And she tells us that her parents got tickets for years afterwards. So she grew up getting a lot of free tickets, but she may be feeling some kind of gift remorse because her parents should have told the team, how about taking care of the problem and we don't need the tickets? So she may be going through something like gift remorse as a 30-year-old woman. And she's messed up. She acknowledged she's a mother of two. She's still, her head is all messed up from the foul ball, and she's struggling. And we've met a lot of people who are struggling. So it's not always just the death, it's the life-changing injuries that we keep on meeting and people keep sharing with us and finding us at Foul Ball Safety Now. So I'm not sure if that addresses your whole question, but I'm happy to follow up. If you want to follow up, you can. Brianna?
Yeah, feel free if anybody has any more questions, unmute, or you can also type in the chat.
I could certainly get into current events and what we're doing right now. Every week, I'm producing new work at Foul Ball Safety Now. We have something right now ongoing at Queens College, which is very interesting. I got contacted by a student athlete in Queens, New York, who was concerned that their foul balls during practice and games would potentially hurt a child outside the ballpark. And he said, Google Earth, Queens College, and you'll see there's a baseball field on the campus, and kids are walking on the sides, and we're nervous. I said, well, that's pretty legitimate. Student athletes shouldn't bear the burden or, have the psychological burden of knowing that they could be doing some serious harm to somebody. They should be playing the game free and clear. If the NCAA needs to do more to make sure that happens, make it happen. And we've written a few letters, and we just wrote a fourth letter out in November, so people can check that out. We copied the NCAA on it. It's under the tab Queens College Investigation. People should check out the tabs and look at all the letters that we wrote. And it's not just Queens College. You'll read the tone of my letter to them, the tone of my letters to them. Modesto, California, which is an affiliate of the Seattle Mariners, there could be 15 balls flying outside the ballpark within a 3-hour period, and maybe they're hitting the car, or maybe they're hitting the pavement. In this case, it hit a woman in the head, and we were contacted by a law firm in California, and that case ended up being settled. So you can look at the tab Unknown Modesto, also at Foul Ball Safety Now. You'll see 3 letters we wrote this past summer to the Modesto newspaper. So the woman was struck outside the ballpark in July of 23, and we were contacted in the spring of 25. The lawyer was preparing for his client a case, and we learned at the end of July that case was settled. But should the families and the children have known about this injury that took place in July of 2023? Should management have made certain gestures to the fans to maybe walk around the ballpark with some kind of umbrella? If within a 3-hour period, 15 balls are raining on the pavement, I would like to know that. I think you would all like to know that. I even have a story when I was back in Brooklyn, way before I got involved in any of this, attending a Cyclones game in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York, where we were outside on the avenue, group of people, young and old, and this young person gets hit right on the forearm on a fly. We were shocked. We were like, what is that? And there's solutions out there. I'm presenting what has been. I'm presenting that these happenings are happening, and I think we're better off knowing that all of this has happened. It continues to happen, and there are solutions. I want student athletes to feel good about playing the game, and they shouldn't be burdened with the fact that some of their balls can go outside over the sides and hit an elementary school student. And they're probably not alone. And we'll probably be doing more outreach to the colleges and trying to hear more from the college student athletes if they're going through duress and stress. Because they should go to the game feeling good about the game. And I'm going to do what I can to make sure that we all identify what the experiences are like for these college players and these young professional athletes that are, trying to climb the ranks and make it to the major leagues. who are all dealing with their own moral compass kind of thing, right from wrong. So I'm going to try to help them. So we'll just keep these conversations breathing life into them. That's what we do. All right. Anybody want to jump in, divert, address anything you want to say? Go ahead.
Not
Who's
to
there?
divert Matthew here. Modesto did become defunct in September.
Wait. Who's this? Who's this?
Matthew,
Hi, Matthew. What was that?
the Modesto Nuts became defunct in September.
Yes, I know. But they moved to San Bernardino, and yes, and I do know the netting status in San Bernardino. But why did they go cheap this summer? Not only, yeah, there's actually two issues with them, Matthew. Not only the woman who got hit outside the ballpark, but in my opinion, you'll see on my website, Diamond Baseball Holdings, which owns the Modesto Club that moved to San Bernardino. They didn't extend netting this year. They were one of the few that did not actually meet that 2025 suggestion by the commissioner. And you'll read about that when you look at the unknown Modesto. So there's something in there too about, well, why did they go cheap this summer? Because they knew they were maybe moving to San Bernardino. It just raises all kinds of questions, Matthew.
Yeah, I wonder if one maybe had to do with the other, how much the lawsuit was and whatnot. And there is a new team moving into that ballpark that belongs to the Pioneer League, and they're now called the Modesto Low Riders.
Yeah, and they may be part, if they're part of the MLB partner leagues, there's still 30 to 40 of them that don't have extended netting past end of dugouts.
Yeah.
So,
Concerning, for sure.
Yeah. So, no, I appreciate you speaking up, Matthew. I know you're more affiliated with the games than maybe some of the other guests. So I appreciate that. Anybody else want to chime in? Okay. I'll get into what I'm doing. This is what I do every week at Foul Ball Safety Now. We continue to conduct interviews. We continue to find new things. We're finding people on the team that I've been working with. We've been finding new injuries. People are self-reporting their own injuries. Just because it doesn't make it to a publication, people are recording their black and blue marks and stating things like, I had no idea this was going to happen today. You'll see a list of a lot of injuries that we've found and we've posted on the major league level and in other professional levels. When you go back and Google things like we've been doing, we're finding things that we missed from a few years ago. I've been at this 6 years, but apparently people have been self-reporting their injuries for a long time. That's what people do. It's a little weird, but they'll make videos about their own marks. Here's something that you guys should learn about. I have something on the website called I think it's Topps Baseball Cards, where you see on the website Topps Baseball Cards where people are, this one woman who got black and blued by a baseball 110 miles an hour in 2024. Topps Baseball Cards. If you grew up with baseball cards, you grew up with Topps Baseball Cards, I predict. And what did Topps Baseball Cards do? She got hit by a 110-mile-an-hour ball, and they made 110 baseball cards of her and her likeness. And they were like, way to go, Liz, you're a champion. And I thought that was in pretty bad taste, I'll tell you. I'll just go a little bit off on the side. When there was COVID in 2020, when there was no fans coming to seats, they installed the cardboard cutouts. And if your cardboard cutout got decapitated, you would get a prize. So you would, like, let's say your seat was row B, seat 12. you would get a likeness of yourself as a cardboard cutout. And if you got decapitated, you would get a prize. You'd get some coupons when the doors opened up again, kind of something like that. And the victims that I've come intimate with and who've interviewed with us, I knew them at the time. Um, we did a lot of interviews in 2020, 2021 with these victims, and they were talking about this. Oh, look what happened last year at the game with the cardboard cutouts. They thought it was very insensitive, and I thought it was very insensitive. Similar, MLB doing this whole promotion. How about Topps baseball cards, owned by Fanatics, who's huge all over the world, not only in American baseball, but I saw on a video somebody was going through the Tokyo Giants ballpark. And what did I see? I saw Fanatics plastered on the wall in the souvenir stores where they were selling Japanese souvenir garb. So they printed up 110 cards of Liz. I thought it was in bad taste. So this was last year. And I called the Children's Hospital because it was nice that Liz was going to donate some of the money to the hospital. But I said to the hospital, do you really want to be associated with this kind of thing? I said, if it was 110 mile an hour, could have also killed somebody. Linda Goldblum got killed by a 93 mile an hour ball. But 80, 90, 100, it's all crazy. But yes, people are getting hit by these fastballs, and Topps is going out of their way to make this woman look like a hero. Way to go, Liz. So they printed up 110 cards. So you can check out that tab, look at the letters I wrote to the presidents and the people that run those companies over there. I thought that was pretty distasteful. So I don't think baseball's doing what they can to address their legacy of this issue. And if anything, they're doubling down and doing what they can just to make sure that the fans keep coming back and not really addressing all the people that I've come across. And unfortunately, they're screwed because they don't know how to think about the game anymore that they loved. So I'm going to do what I can to get them some kind of reconciliation because that's what I do. I'm trying to create conversations. And I hope everyone in the room here feels like it's an important conversation. We can put the information on the table, and then people above our pay grade can start thinking about solutions because I think there are solutions in place that young student athletes and young professional athletes don't have to feel conflict. They don't have to worry about just only telling their mother and father to sit behind the nets because that's what they do. We've interviewed more than 30 baseball players. So we know from the 30 baseball players we've spoken with, many of them have told us they tell their own parents to sit behind the netting. But at the same time, unfortunately, the legacy shows that they weren't telling everybody else. So it raises a lot of questions, but I think it's time we finally address all of this. It's just a conversation. And we all want everyone to jump in. All right, I could take a pause. This conversation, I think, is going pretty well, but love to hear some more thoughts from anyone in the group. How are we doing over there, people? Anyone type in a question, a concern, how they want to get involved? Is it just going to be me continuing this conversation, spending X amount of dollars every week, or will there be others jumping in to get curious? I hope so, because there's 70 million baseball fans, and they don't all work for MLB. Most of them don't. So I think we should all be curious to learn what we can learn about this matter. I hope you all remain curious about this beyond this call. Anybody else want to share something? Are you still there, Brianna?
I'm here, yeah. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute or type in the chat.
Brianna, do you want to share your some of your time with foul ball safety now?
Yeah, I definitely can for sure. So I have been working with this campaign for over a year now. I came in originally and I do communications and research. So I am actually one of the people who has found a lot of these injuries reported in 2025. As you can see, there's a very long list, sadly, still happening in 2025 with the seemingly improved netting. but I'm a mother and I am honestly offended by the MLB's openly marketing towards children and knowing what I know just from working on this campaign and being so intimate with a lot of these victims and their stories that I'm somebody who lives in a baseball city. I'm in LA, so we have the Dodgers and we have the Angels. And I've been dragged to my fair share of games. And I would have definitely, had I not come into contact with this campaign and become educated, I would have definitely brought my son to a game just unknowing. And who knows where I would have sat, or not that you can guarantee safety in any seat, but it's really disgusting. And we have the technology to fix the problem and prevent it from happening to anybody else ever again. And I would love to see baseball truly be a safe sport for families and truly have that magic that you feel when you go to the ballpark. So that's where I'm at right now.
I could follow up in a second, Brianna, but if anyone wants to jump in.
Yeah, any questions or comments, feel free to unmute and ask or type in the chat.
I'll go on a little bit, Brianna. We have something on the website. Excuse me. We have something on the website called it's a pop-up looking for pro bono attorneys, and you can show that, Brianna, if that's around. Um, as soon as you go to the website, there's a call for attorneys to jump in because we believe. And I believe, after speaking with probably 100 attorneys, no joke, I had a post on a website called Indeed, and the post stated lawyers looking for other lawyers to sponsor conference calls, lawyers seeking other lawyers to sponsor conference calls. And I was willing to pay lawyers to get groups of lawyers together so they could figure out how to establish the right theory so they can go into court in a particular state. Because that video, that Exhibit A video in 2019, which clearly demonstrates to the world the horrific examples of why human beings should not be subjected to beeline line drives coming at 100, let alone children under 18. So the world saw this video together. 700,000 people viewed this video in 2019. 4,000 people made comments to it. I want the right attorney in the right state to take this video and show it to a judge and say to the judge, Judge, please look at this video. And the judge will say, yeah, okay. And they go look at the video and they'll say, this is the way it's business as usual here in our city, in our state. Yes. And once the judge sees that video, how would he not or she not be compelled to say something like, this is disgusting? Until further notice, there will not be any children coming. I'm looking for that, for those lawyers with those teeth, with that network to make it happen. They have to go in a room. It depends on the city and the state to establish standing. And do you need to get a children's agency to join you in this effort and sponsor you, be saying that a lot of these kids that are sitting just past end of dugouts are camp children and they don't have the right parental guidance, so there's really nobody who's bringing them to the game with adults with the proper adult supervision. Again, that's above my pay grade, but I actually spoke with 100 lawyers because everybody wanted to hear me talk about foul ball safety now, similar to what I'm doing now. I only, out of those 100 lawyers, because it was over months and months, I sponsored 3 conferences. Actually, 2 of them were pediatricians, similar. I had a post on Indeed. Pediatricians wanted to organize conference calls with other pediatricians. And yeah, they're also looking for side work at a few $100s an hour. And I spoke to those people too. So I would say yes, 135 conversations with lawyers and pediatricians. 3 conferences, but probably 50 or 75 45-minute calls, all telling them my whole story. They figured while they had me on the line, they would get the one-on-one presentation, which they did. They may have not been interested in taking me up on the job post, but they figured I was on the line with them anyhow, so I'd give them the whole spiel, as they would say. So informed. They got informed about this matter for sure. So, yes, there's room for lawyers and there's room for pediatricians to take a look at the status quo and maybe figure out how to go into court and maybe make some noise and finally send some shockwaves through baseball and their establishment saying some people are paying attention. And we're going to keep on presenting information as we learn it and what we found, and that's what we're trying. We're trying um, this kind of forum because you guys are curious and you put aside some time, and I want to give you as much information as I can. And again, I'll be around after this call, and you guys could always info at Foul Ball Safety Now, and we can keep it going. I welcome this. This is not a not-for-profit. This is me out-of-pocket expense, spending money on journalists and Brianna and Lance and more than 100 hours worth of lawyer fees. Those people that I've spoken to about lawyers organizing conference calls with other lawyers, that's something else. But the 100 hours worth of lawyer fees are people in my world like David and Lynn and another lawyer, Greg, who went to court with me in Peoria, and another guy by the name of Jonathan. I've probably given him 25 hours. He's a publishing guy. He's helping us. He was helping us for a while in networking what we want to do with all our stuff. So all this stuff could be weaved and styled for readers, which we have all these interviews and we have all these reports. So we're going to eventually get that out there too. But in the meanwhile, we want to prevent Black and Blues from moving forward. We want people to look at this issue with us, and we welcome that. So I could take another pause, and if anyone wants to jump in and tell us their own story, maybe somebody had an experience other than Matthew. I know Matthew is around baseball, but maybe somebody else has an issue. Go ahead.
Hey, David here. I had a question.
Sure.
So I imagine that some baseball parks have made improvements and
Right.
others haven't. And
Right.
have you identified like who's the worst offenders or who is the highest risk ballparks?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have it? Have you tried to narrow it down to who's where the real danger is?
Sure. So, I'm aware of 2 children that were critically injured in the summer of 2023. Manford made some reaction in 2022. This is the Hickory Crawdads in North Carolina, and not connected to my case, but the Peoria Chiefs, where there was a girl that was actually in critical condition. I even found out through the hospital she was in critical condition, upgraded to intermediate care. So I felt good about that. But I won't rate one ballpark as better than another. Is there a way to do that? Sure. But I'm not going to say this ballpark is this 30% chance less of somebody getting injured by a foul ball. Until there's an agency, Dave, that comes in, like an independent netting council or somebody who's commissioned to come in and determine, can we finally seal this ballpark as good to go, like give it its like certificate of occupancy, if that's the right way to put it. If we were applying that certificate of occupancy to the ballpark, like, yeah, you guys are good to go. You could open up the doors. Your 4-year-olds don't have to worry about a thing. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for transparency inside and outside the ballpark. Whether those nets were up, what happened when Manford made this announcement in December of 2022 and said by 2025, all teams would have extended netting down the lines. Okay, great, but why didn't they tell them to do it for 2023? Why 2025? And not one team of the 43 teams, whatever it was at the time, who were part of the affiliates, salaries being paid for by major leagues. Not one of those teams. You'll see I have on my, if you could pull up Brianna on the website, Foul Ball Safety Now, Brianna, you could put out the 21, the 22, and the 2023 minor league netting reports. By the time Manfred said this in December of 2022, I already had 2 years of reports up in the spring of 21 and the spring of 2022, which showed these affiliates with no netting past end of dugouts. And not one team, after Manfred said in 2022, upgraded. They all kicked the can down the road for another year or two. Till maybe some did it in 24, but none did it in 23. And that was after Manfred said he gave them till 2025. But most of the MLB teams have extended their nets, but they're still like 30 to 40. But Modesto did not, because they were moving to San Bernardino. That's my theory. They figured, why go for the extra netting this year? Leave it for the new team. But again, this is all just research that I'm doing, and people can try to figure it out for themselves. So Dave, to answer your question, I can't. It wouldn't be the right thing for me to do to say. I'll leave that for you to make an informed decision. And obviously, you'll be more informed after this call on whatever ballpark you'll be visiting next year to determine if you want to go or not. I can't really go to that area, but I think you guys are going to learn a lot. I think, and I really would appreciate your feedback beyond the call, of course. Obviously, you'll take a longer study or a longer tour of the website. Dave, did you have a follow-up to that?
No, that was helpful.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate that you don't want to step into the role of being the safety expert.
All right.
Maybe I don't know. I'm just wondering if insurance companies do that. The insurance companies that
I don't think they've been bothered too much. I don't
The
think they've been
baseball
bothered.
team or the ballpark do that kind of analysis.
Yeah, I don't think they've been bothered too much because most people don't end up filing because of the baseball rule. It's very hard to find a lawyer if you're seriously injured in most states. They don't want to do, these lawyers don't want to do 30 hours worth of work, and their case doesn't even get through the door. It's very hard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I've had stories that we've heard from the people that we've met along the way, where sometimes it's even worse. The insult is worse than the injury, where this woman her jaw was wide shut for a few months, and the team says, keep all the bills together. And then they ghosted her, man, like after 8 months. How about that? That sucks. And that makes it even worse. They were going to pay her $15,000-$20,000 worth of bills. I had a woman call me in Tennessee. She was at a Tennessee Smokies game. Yeah, Smokies, no pun intended. But yes, she got smoked. And she had $100,000 worth of damage. And I was fortunately able to find her an attorney. And they took the case. So that was through some networking through the lawyers that I knew. And she's maybe in the middle of her proceedings right now. But once everyone learns about some of the things that baseball's done to make it much more harder on the plaintiff, you may say, well, they're just defending their client, but you'll have an opportunity to read about some of that stuff because we're going to make that public. And then you'll decide for yourself, like, was that the right way to treat this person? Yeah, they were suing you, but yeah, what kind of hoops were you making them jump through? And what kind of, like, the subpoena wasn't served directly. Maybe that's all part of court work. I don't know, either way. But they were making it, we're learning about specific cases, and it really does make your eyes roll. It's about some of the things that were requested upon the plaintiff to provide to make it. It was harder for them to get all that stuff together. Some people, one guy, this is true. I'm not going to get into the specific case, But one guy, he already didn't have the function of one eye, and he gets hit in the other eye. And then they're making this guy go around the house. It's like going for your passport, and you need, bring 4 pieces of information. MLB lawyers are saying, you need 30 pieces of information. And this guy is like trying to find this stuff in his house, and he's got like maybe one eye that's barely working. I'm telling you. So you're going to find some insensitivity along the way if you pay attention to what I'm up to. Please do stay in tuned for what comes next. But we welcome your input. I'm not a super rich guy, but I've put a lot of time and money into this. I've rented out 5 airplanes. Each one of them costs like $3,000. So there you go. And I'd love to do something with someone and rent out 30 airplanes all on the same day. But I don't know if I'm going to pay for that. But somebody in the room might, and I'll tell them who to pay, not me. They'll pay the pilot. So there's things to do. We try to have a little bit of a sense of humor over here. I'm not going to be Debbie Downer for the rest of my life. I'm going to stay healthy aggression. Brianna's putting her part-time work into this, and I really appreciate it. Brendan's putting his part-time work into this. I really appreciate it. The lawyers I have around me are looking out for me, making sure that I'm not going to get sued tomorrow if it's saying the wrong thing. So I consult with those folks, and yeah, I think we're moving the conversation along. But there's points of entry for all of us. Clearly, 70 million baseball fans. We just want to tell those fans information they may have missed, and they can then decide for themselves.
Jordan,
So,
if I may interrupt, and I sounds like
yes.
we're going to do a close, but I just want to commend you both for this endeavor. It's important, and I see your hearts in this, and definitely pure. I am curious, being a Mets fan that you are, have you ever reached out to Stephen Cohen? I know that he keeps lines of communication open. One of the reasons Manfred really only answers to those he has to, and that being the 30 major league owners, as well as maybe another person to reach out, especially before the next collective bargaining, is Tony Clark.
Right.
So I don't know if those.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Well, yeah. So Tony Clark, former player himself, and now, um, yeah, I'm not so kind. I'm not really feeling fond of the Baseball Players Union because I think supposedly it came up 4 times in collective bargaining, the netting matter. And I don't know why the Players Union didn't stand together on this all along, and just say, well, our guys just don't go to work and hit balls towards kids. We're not going to do that anymore. And we need to take that away from the game. I would love to see the minutes about what supposedly was exchanged in those 4 separate negotiations. But I really don't know why they don't really the legacy will show that they never really wanted to get to the heart of the matter. And it's always been kicked to can. And business as usual, even in 2025, it's bad. It's still the dark ages. We know of bats that are still flying into the seats. There was a playoff game, which we have a video, Brianna. I don't know if you want to pop that one up too, but people can see it. The video demonstrates it was a Polanco for the Mariners. Just hit 2 home runs. What a game. Everyone's having a great time. Playoffs, exciting. And then one of his next at bats, he breaks his bat for an infield single. Okay. When they were going to commercial, the producer, I'm glad they showed it because at least we saw it all together. The bat goes over the net from the seating perspective, and you hear the announcer saying, "Yikes, look out." So, why is business as usual in 2025 allowing broken bats to fly over nets to potentially pierce somebody's heart or clock somebody in the head and send them to the hospital? But that is business as usual in 2025. And that's disgusting. And there's another incident, Yankees Orioles, which I was just happened to be watching. Yankees Orioles, June 22nd, also another bat leaves the guy's hands. It wasn't a broken bat. He lost control of the bat. It happens. Didn't bounce off any net. It went right over the net. And if it wasn't for a hot day in June, those $800 seats would have been occupied. So, why are Nets so flying into seats? It's crazy. But I mean, balls. Why are bats still flying over nets? And balls too. So there's a lot of stories here, but you can follow up on that. But I'm not too hopeful that I think the window was opened, and one of these days we'll see exactly what was said, maybe, and during those four separate collective bargaining agreements. But it should have been a non-starter for the union. And now that these younger professionals have these, now they're supposedly in the union as well. You would hope that guys like Tony Clark, who went through that experience as younger players, as 20-year-olds themselves, would want to take that burden off of the minds of the 20-year-old of today, similar to like the Queens College, where, yes, student athletes are speaking up. Their moral compasses are being developed, and they're trying to figure out what's right from wrong. And I'm glad they're talking about it. And they should not be in a position or compromised where they have to worry about hitting somebody on in the game. So. Yeah, or outside the ballpark, where if you Google Earth, Queens College, you're going to see the letters. You'll see that there's an elementary school right on the campus of the Queens College field, and these student athletes are concerned. And I said it's legit. So we're four letters in, and we've copied the NCAA, and it's probably happening in hundreds of other colleges, and we'll try to get these student athletes to unburden themselves as well, and maybe they can feel good about playing the game they love. And I want them to. And there's solutions out there, and I'm going to let the students know that, student athletes know that, and we just need to address this issue. And now's the time to do it, because I don't want to get in their heads in April or even in February or whenever they start their games. So we're going to try to keep that conversation moving along in the next few months. So we welcome your input. Yeah. Um, Anybody else have any questions? We're doing good. We're about an hour and 15 minutes in. I really appreciate everyone coming. But you could open up to a general question, or just even a general story about, who your favorite team was. It doesn't have to be foul ball. We can certainly get sentimental for a few minutes. Anybody have any sentimental story they want to share? That's fine. I like baseball stories. All right. I'll give you one baseball sentimental story. I have a few, but um, let's see. So 1973, game five. It's three people in my family, but we only had two tickets. So we show up to the ballpark. It was game five, Mets versus Reds. At the time, it was best of five, and who won that division series, who won that National League series was going to the World Series. So it was a big game. Got to take off from school. Game was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 9 years old. Who's got it better than me? So my sister, my dad, and we go to the game with only two tickets, but three people. So we were able to somehow exchange those two for three. Worked out. That afternoon, the vice president of the United States at the time was Spiro Agnew, and he resigned. It was in the middle of the Watergate crisis. And they put it up on the scoreboard, and yeah, the whole crowd went crazy. Like it was a big deal. And I was like, oh, big deal. Okay. So that was also part of that day. And then in the year 2000, it was the Mets and Yankees working Mets Yankees, the Subway Series, hard ticket to get. I called up Shea Stadium and I said, guys, I want a job as a vendor. And the guy said, you can come, you could work, but you got to work. You can't just be watching the game. I was like, no problem. And for 3 days, even though the Mets lost, I got to see three home games, Mets, Yankees, World Series, and I had to sell pretzels and sodas. And by doing that, you meet people you hadn't seen since high school. So yes, I anticipated running into people that could afford to be at the game. Uh, you know, at the time I was in my 30s, and some of those friends, I was like, "What are you doing here?" To me, I'm like, "This is it. This is the last 3 days. That's it." Some people I gave free pretzels and sodas to. So that was it. That's my story. So that's I'm a baseball guy, people, and I want people to know that. So, Brianna, Is there anyone or anyone else in the room want to say anything else? We can start winding it down. Brianna?
I'm here just seeing if anybody wants to chime in or is chatting.
Okay. Anybody have any questions that they want to text or say? Well, listen, everyone, feel free to, excuse me, to go to info at Foul Ball Safety, send me a message, or just take a look at the website, and we'll see how it goes in the near future. We'll be around. I think
I just want to thank you. I'm going to sign off. Really appreciate this endeavor, and I'll stay in touch. About to head into Navajo land, so I'm going to lose signal anyway. So it's perfect. And
Thank you.
blessings to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, people, I'm going to say goodbye and really appreciate everyone coming. And thank you
Guys, for
very
joining
much.
today.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we're out.
Hold on.